Hello, hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to View from Love. I am your host, Allie Ray. I'm here with my beloved co-host, Lou Martin. Hello, Lou. Hi, Lou. And today's guest, we have Jenna Wilson. She's an amazing, incredible, inspiring woman that I can't wait for you to get to know. We're very excited to have you on this podcast journey of extraordinary love. And we are very, very excited to welcome Miss Jenna Wilson. Let me give you a little bit about Jenna. Jenna is a mother, a midwife, a widow, and an adventurer. She is learning how to deeply listen to her heart and is passionate about inspiring others to do so as well. Following the messages of her own heart, she is beginning a new journey, developing skills as a Reiki master and a certified 7 Cups of Consciousness practitioner. So a lot of exciting things happening in your world, Miss Jenna, and I'm so excited to have you here on View from Love. Welcome.
Indeed. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. And I want to give full disclosure and let you know that this is my first ever podcast as a guest.
Hooray, hooray.
Yay!
Well, welcome. We're so excited
Thank
to
you.
have you here.
I'm really excited
Yay.
too.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
So, Jenna, if you wouldn't mind, I actually do have the honor of knowing you personally. And I would just love the world to get to know you. So if you could just kind of give our audience a little bit of background about Jenna. So,
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
Okay, where to start? Where to start indeed. Well, I feel like since this podcast is about love, I'll kind of start my introduction to where I feel like my journey to love really kind of like the rubber hit the road, so to speak. And that was in 2010. I actually took a women's workshop with one of my mentors. It was her first round of this workshop that she called Soulmate School. And it was skills and tools and kind of like mindsets on how to love ourselves first, kind of like in preparation for and making space in our own hearts for finding a soulmate and, you know, a partner love. I'm still pretty close with a lot of the women that were in that group and feel like that was kind of one of the first experiences I had of learning how to deeply connect with myself and my heart, and love myself fully and first. And a couple years later, I did meet a man who really touched my heart, and I kind of wanted to share a feeling I had like the first day I met him, which spoke really strongly to me about the power of our connection and my heart and how my heart felt with this man. So we met at a volunteer dinner. We were serving Thanksgiving dinner to homeless people at a rescue mission. And he was walking across the room holding a coffee tray and just caught my eye in a way that, you know, if you know that feeling, you know, it was just kind of like sparkly and like, oh, who's that? And and the way that he walked, like he led with his chest. And he actually taught me a lot more about living from the heart because he embodied that. He did that too. And so we kind of got to chatting, and at one point I was like kind of nervous and he had asked me a question or something, and I was flighty. I was kind of like looking off in the distance, and he was standing to my left, and he just leaned in. He like leaned over and leaned toward me and just looked in my eyes. And I felt like a landing, like I landed in my heart, or my heart like landed on the ground, not in like a, you know,
Mm.
your heart drops kind of feeling,
Yeah.
but just like, ah, an arrival, a
Mm.
safety. I'll never forget that feeling. And he did, he was, I mean, there was a reason I married him and nobody else that I dated. You know, like he taught me a lot about being safe in my heart and who I was.
So what was
And I
it
learned,
like in the
yeah.
dating? So like obviously you just felt this homecoming, right? In your
Hmm.
heart, you just were like, "Oh, I'm home with him."
Yeah.
And obviously even the way that you're describing it, and I can feel it coming through, that it was so reciprocal. Like he was,
Yeah.
you and he were like instantly one, you know, you're sharing this oneness and this one heart. And so how did it go with the dating? And so you were volunteers there, and then what happened next? How
Yeah.
did
It, well, except for like the frantic nervousness I had with the like the event was ending and I was like, oh, I have to see him again. And we were kind of trying to figure out like he was like, oh, I come here every Wednesday night because he volunteered there regularly. And he said when he said that he saw me kind of like calculating, okay, I'll come back on a Wednesday night. And he knew that he would see me again. But one of my dear friends from the Soulmate School actually was at the event with me, and we lovingly dubbed her from that day on Wingman because she was in that conversation and she was like, well, why don't you just give us your phone number? And so, yes,
Yep, yep,
so
yep.
Wingman will forever have credit for yeah, what unfolded. So I got his number, we connected. He called me the next day, which was Thanksgiving, and he was having it with friends, but I could tell he was a little nervous. I could hear it in his voice, but he just said, I'd like to take you out to dinner. And it was direct, but you know, kind, and
Mm.
just was just like, yeah, sounds great. Um, so he picked me up the next night, and you know, there was the normal like kind of nervousness of getting to know someone new, but underneath that, the whole way through was an ease.
Mm.
Like it just felt easy to be me. And I was a student midwife at the time. So I think it was maybe like our second or third date, I got called to a birth like an hour beforehand. So I had to text him or call him and be like, actually, I got called to a birth. And he was like, no problem. What are you doing tomorrow night? Or just, there was no
Mm.
anxiety of like, oh no, I'm not available. Did I ruin it? It just was, there was a deep trust there that he was available. He made it clear that he was prioritizing our connection and wanting to get to know me. And I felt the same way. And
Mm.
yeah, we had a lot of fun.
So were you actually you were in the midwife program at the time of dating him? And then did you also get married while you were still training to be a midwife, or how did that
I
work?
actually got licensed. So I had taken my board exams like a week before I met him. So board exams, met him, dating, finished up like my paperwork for becoming a midwife, moved in with Matt 5 months into dating just because an apartment became available where he was living. And it was kind of like, well, he was 10 years older than me. We were both at the age of like, let's just go for it and figure out if this is going to work. And so I think the same month that I moved in with him, I received my certificate as a licensed midwife.
Wow.
Yep.
A lot of things came
So
together for you at the same time. The calling of your career, where your heart was led to be a midwife, and then also to find your love.
yeah,
Yeah, that's so
a lot
beautiful.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Jenna, if I could just for a moment, talking about the midwifery,
Mhm.
um, and that calling, if you could just talk about that as well, because again, that's coming from the heart. I mean, this is certainly a career that, unless someone is really called into it, um, it's not a common career. So I'd love to hear you share a little bit about that too. The love that led you to
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So my mom had midwives present when me and my twin sister were born. So it was always kind of part of my, vocabulary and story, knowing about that role. And it wasn't until my late 20s that there was a light bulb moment conversation with a girlfriend of mine. Um, so in my 20s, I had always worked with people. There was always this love of connecting with people. My mom was a social worker for a long time, so I kind of like come from that lineage of, um, I guess, being a helper in
Mm.
a way. But I was really actively kind of looking for my calling in my mid to late 20s. And then it was at a nightclub here in Santa Barbara, just a very small, modest little music venue called Soho Nightclub. It has fantastic wood floors that are really great to dance on barefoot. Um, Lots of great memories there. And it was there was a band from LA there, and a girlfriend and I were just kind of noticing fashion and um, ended up talking about women's roles in society. And I was saying something about how it seemed like the nurturing, like softness of femininity just didn't really have a place in society, especially at that point. I think it was 2007, and there was something about the fashion that was just very kind of like androgynous and hard lines and not a lot of flowiness. Excuse me. And so whatever I was saying made my friend say, "Gosh, you sound like you would make a great midwife."
Just flip, there it is.
Click. That was
Yeah.
the key. Unlocked the door opened. I mean, literally, I was
Wow.
researching midwife schools the next day. I did decide to become a doula first, and that same friend connected me with another friend of hers that was a doula and a student midwife. And I got to just ask her all the questions I had. She sent me home with an armful of books and VHSs. um, Birth and technology don't
Oh,
always,
yeah, yeah. And you had to go
develop.
find a VCR. Who knows where that was?
I happened to live somewhere where there was a VCR in the house, and I remember
Wow.
watching these birth videos and just weeping. I was just sitting there, just like tears pouring down my face, like, is this a normal response? Like, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Humans coming into life,
yeah.
and like, when I had the honor and privilege to get to know you and meet you, when I was pregnant, um, and just the open heart, Jenna,
Mm.
that you have. And it's just this loving, intuitive presence that you have, that's just so powerful, and it's very specific to you.
Aw, thank
Because
you.
there's been many women that I met during my pregnancy to connect and discover midwives, and they are all very, very different and unique, and come from very different aspects. And what's so beautiful about you is you have all of the training, all of the official medical training and the support of the hospital and the doctors that you work with and all that, but you have it so integrated with the soul and the heart and the essence of what it is to be giving birth and to be born. It's like I always felt like you have this ability to hold the complete experience, where it's not just about the mother, it's not just about the baby, it's about the entirety of the whole experience, because a mother is being born at the same time the baby is being born, and it's the relationship of the two, and also you as a partner in that for the families and for them. It's incredible. And really how you describe that, have your heart just opening and weeping watching the births, it's because in your very being you're acknowledging the miracle of the soul, the soul coming in, and what it is to be precious, the human preciousness. Yeah.
It is.
So
It's so precious.
yeah. Yeah. So Jenna, I mean, I am just so honored and blessed to know you, and
Thank you,
to
Valerie.
have experienced so many of your gifts as a midwife and as a friend. Yes, so that again, it speaks to the love of your heart and that openness, and you following your calling, which so interestingly brought you in timing to your licensing and your new relationship with Matt.
Yeah.
And so where did things move forward from there?
So that was 2014, and I just dove right into a busy group practice as a midwife. And there were two kind of senior midwives who had founded the practice, and I was the fresh blood, and eager and available, and so I got to be really busy, and really enjoyed the experience, and just learned so much, and yeah, just got to work as a busy midwife. And then at the end of 2014, Matt proposed to me on Christmas. That was a year and a month after we had met. And it's a good thing I said yes, because we found out a week later that I was pregnant. On New Year's Eve, I got to give him my New Year's Eve gift. And so we got married when I was 28 weeks pregnant, and I continued to work as a midwife. Some of those windows of time were not my top midwifery performance. I remember being at a prenatal visit with someone who was having her third baby with us. So I knew her pretty well. I was maybe like 10 weeks pregnant or something. We were doing a home visit, and I was kind of like reclined on her bed. And then throughout the course of the visit, I ended up getting more and more horizontal. It's just like the nausea and the tiredness. And she was like, yeah, you could just lay down for a little bit. So that was so sweet. And just another thing that I really love about midwifery care, it's a whole different depth of intimacy. And obviously I maintain, the professional role, and I am the caretaker, but there's room for those kinds of sweetnesses where you get to know a client well and share a little bit more of yourself than one might experience in an OB office.
Yes.
So we got married. I was 28 weeks pregnant. We had our honeymoon in Hawaii. We swam with dolphins. That truly was like probably one of the highlights of my life so far. Yeah, just really doing what our hearts desired, and why not have a honeymoon in Hawaii, So we went for it. and that was lovely. And I did get to have my home birth in September of 2015. It was long and hard, but again, I practiced that listening that I do as a midwife, and I was able to do it for myself and essentially midwifed myself through some kind of like twists and turns and stalls and complications in the labor, and just um, applied what I knew as a midwife and did what needed to be done next, and pushed my baby out, and had a lovely home birth. And that was a really wonderful bonding experience, obviously, for me and Matt. And I took a few months off of work, loved being a mom, loved breastfeeding. Oh my gosh, I missed that part more than I expected. And Matt was kind of in transition career wise and was really available as a dad. And I think he was 44 when our son was born. And so had thought maybe there was a chance he wouldn't become a dad, and was just all in, like so proud to have this son. And all kids are special. I'm a little biased, like
Yeah.
Jack is really special.
He is.
Matt...
He is. He's really special. Auntie Allie can attest to it. Yes. Super special.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was infused, I think, with just Matt's like thrilled attitude of being a dad. So he was kind of like our on-call child care when I needed to go to a birth, and he was kind of doing side gigs here and there, and he was training to be a pilot. He had his private pilot's license already, and he was actually on our honeymoon. We visited friends that were flying powered hang gliders as like a flight school. They were just doing little instructional flights, and we flew with them on our honeymoon. And it was actually on our flight back, we got bumped to first class, just so happened. So I remember that flight well, and we were talking about how having that kind of flight school business would go really well in Santa Barbara. It's a little bit of a touristy market here. It's gorgeous. Matt was a people person, and just I just saw it so clearly. Like, he'd be flying around, be like, there's my house down there, and there's where I used to ride my dirt bikes across the mesa, and he grew up here. So that is an interesting chapter of, that was a really heart-led process of, I could so see that profession making him happy. He had like a CNC machine, and was kind of doing like fabrication stuff, but was really kind of like trying to find his niche and his passion. And it wasn't like in a wood shop. It was out, adventuring, connecting with people. And so in support of his happiness, I really supported him in learning to fly this powered hang glider, and working towards developing it as a business. And it's like, what could go wrong? Kind of was the idea. And it did go wrong. It was actually his first solo flight. He had been training with a friend that was an instructor, and had just gotten the plane here to Santa Barbara from LA, and it was the first time that he was flying by himself. It was a few minutes into the flight, and we don't know what happened. the National Transportation Safety Board that studies every aircraft accident doesn't know what happened. He lost control of the plane and it crashed and he was killed on impact. And I was here at the birth center. I was at a birth when that happened. Yep.
Wow.
And yeah, so you can imagine the shock. I don't know how much
It's
detail I need
interesting,
to go into.
Jenna, to say, you know how we can say we can imagine, but we really can't.
True.
But I just, yeah, in sharing and having you here on the podcast today, so much of the inspiration of it was because I know the beautiful and brave and inspiring woman that you are. And you have brought nothing but courage and love and realness to all of these things that you've experienced. And you hold so many in the love that you have continually become greater and greater through all of these things that you've experienced. I wonder if you would share a little bit about the process of you kind of integrating all of this into your life and as a mother, and if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. Integrating, I really love that word, and it feels like it's a continuous process. The accident was just over 5 years ago, and I feel like I'm in a new, even like another new layer of integrating moving forward. I'm preparing to leave the apartment where it was the only place I lived with Matt and where Jack was born. And it's been a really interesting, I'm like at a loss for words.
Bless you.
Truly. How to put this process into words. It's, there's so many kind of like analogies for grief out there, I feel like. I've seen like scribbling lines, you think life goes forward and time in a way marches forward, but there's also like these other layers that just swiggle around and you're spiraling back to the beginning, but in a, oh, that was 5 years ago sort of way. It's been like almost like breath, I want to say. Like there's been expansions where I'm like, what have we got to lose? Like we only have one life, and just connect with everyone. And I just want to put my voice out there and let people know how important it is to love each other and connect. And then I exhale and I'm like, I can't possibly connect with another person right now. I just need quietness and like be with my own heart. And then I like inhale again. It's a really interesting process. And there's been survival mode for sure. Like just the nervous system trauma of the actual shock of like finding out the news. Like there are echoes of that in my nervous system still, for sure. Part of this transition that I'm doing right now with stepping away from clinical care for probably at least a year, I'm calling it like my sabbatical year. I want to heal my nervous system. and not have an adrenaline response every time my phone makes a noise. Think like, what's happening? Like, oh, there's a client calling. I gotta run to a birth. And as you know, and as I shared, like, it's not because I don't love the work. I love it. And yet I need to take some time for myself right now and heal, so that I can do what I do in that more integrated way.
Yeah. Yeah, Jenna, I've had the pleasure of reading some of your writing, and I know that you had started a book. I think I read a few blog postings. Are you going to be expanding a little bit more with your writing? And I'd love for our listeners, when you're done with our show, there's going to be some links in the comments, so that you can get in touch with Jenna, or take a look at some of her writing, get in contact with her for her energy healing practitioner work. But in particular, Jenna, it's so deeply touching, the writing that you have done around the process of being widowed and all of the different aspects that it brings up, and to the point that it's universal. So like, I haven't been widowed, but I can read what you've written and I can resonate deeply with the feelings and the depth of soulful understanding that you're sharing. And so I feel like there's an innate wisdom that even transcends just that title. And I know that that was something that you had shared with me before, was that even that widow, like, what is that like? Even, like, we live in a world that likes to label everything, and there are certain labels that we slap on like willy-nilly easy, and then there are others that are like, oh, what is this word, and what is the resonance that goes with that, and is that who I am? So it's very we've had some really fascinating conversations about that kind of thing. And yeah, so I just wonder, if is there more that you'd like to share with our audience just about your process now, kind of how are things in your life with your beautiful boy, and what's ahead for you?
Oh, thank you. Well, the answer to your first question is like a resounding yes, with as far as the writing, and creativity. And again, that's what I intend to move into more, is making space for that kind of creative expression that is really important to me. And I thank you so much for just like that encouragement, and like, yeah, it can be helpful for other people. And that's
Yes.
my hope, and my intention is, again, kind of that expansion and contraction, excuse me, is, what was I going to say? Sharing, like, almost like a realistic connection with what this existence is and what's important. It's like, we are here to connect with each other. We're not here to buy the biggest house we possibly can, or, get the biggest pile of money in the bank. Um, we all know, like, we can't take that stuff with us, and yet somehow it is really easy to get caught up in that image and reality. And my hope is to share my experiences of loss and connection, because the other part of what's happening now is a deeper understanding of our connection with kind of like the spiritual side of existence. And the woman who trained me in the 7 Cups of Consciousness practitioner training, her name is Alea Dow, and she gave me, you know, her perspective, her insights on what Matt's passing, like almost like the purpose of it. And her kind of like message to me was that Matt and I had a soul contract to kind of like continue our relationship across this veil between like physical human existence and the spiritual existence. And she literally said, like, every time you think of him on the other side and he thinks of you, you know, that connection is crossing the veil. And and that serves to dissolve the veils between existence. And like, what would it be like if mass consciousness, instead of engaging in the like, oh, do I have the, you know, the newest style of Lululemon pants, like instead of engaging in that mindset, what if they engaged in like, how can my angels best support me now? Like what is the purpose of, you know, whatever, how do we live in a way that is supporting our soul's evolution, the growth and evolving of humanity and betterment of life on earth, like that.
Yeah.
That is what this is about.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Jenna, one of the things that I find profoundly beautiful about your story and your being is that you are very literally and intricately woven into the experience of birth and death. Both.
Yeah, it is
Both.
Yes.
And I want to say that, you know, on this journey, all of us as human beings are in an evolutionary time on the planet, and we are all traversing our own individual experiences of dying to ourselves, dying to old selves, all of these things, and also being born and born again and born again. And so as you were describing the expansion and contraction and the breathing, right, that essence that is so present and so vital in laboring, I think as a collective humanity, we are all in that process, each of us in our own unique ways, but we are constantly in this expansion and contraction flow. And those of us who are really given the tools because of our life experience are able to embody these qualities of love and compassion in the processes related to birth and death. And you are truly a real, beautiful, shining example of someone who radiates that open heart and compassion and love and the depth of understanding, the true depth of understanding. And there's a great deal of compassion that is felt in your presence, Jenna, because of what you've lived. That's another gift, you know, in this union with you and Matt, you know, beyond the veils. And, you know, in speaking with you, I felt very strongly about Matt's presence and laughter and joy. That energy comes through so strong, and it radiates out of your son, Jack, too. It's just the sweetest, you know, it's like, wow, you know, there's this holy trinity, and it's just that we don't physically see Matt standing there, but we feel him. And it's undeniable. It's absolutely undeniable that we do. And the opportunity that your life experience in this way is given to you, and then to all of those who come into contact with you, is so holy. It's just so holy. I mean, to know that a woman who could be so present as life is coming into the world could also hold that baby, receive that baby with the depth of compassionate knowing about death also. That's so profound. It's like the circle having completion. It's the whole
Yeah.
circle. It's not just a piece of here of a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But that's something that you embody because you live it. And I just want to honor you and that experience and the gift that you are because of what your soul has chosen to express and live. Yeah.
Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, the whole intention of this podcast is to inspire listeners by bringing people who can share how they are experiencing love in their life. How can you see love in the face of things that most people would just never want to experience and not look at and not actually have a depth of gratitude for the presence of love even in our tragedies.
Right.
Yeah. You're just such an
Aw.
inspiration, Jenna. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. And Jack, my son, Jack, has been, I mean, a huge source of light and gratitude and love. And yeah, I mean, I think one thing I'd like to share also is excuse me, like permission. Not like I'm not giving people permission, but I am encouraging people to give themselves permission to do whatever it takes to be happy and feel loved by themselves. And you know, there's sure the reality of needing to eat food and probably have a warm house to stay in, and so there's the money game that we need to play to a certain extent, but it can look a lot of different ways. And I'm just saying that from a seat literally of like I'm about to leave the job that I've been in for the last 8 years and very well could have spent the rest of my career doing this. And it takes a lot of I don't know what
Courage,
creativity, and it starts with permission to like do something different. And I'm excited. I am going to be sharing and like documenting our journey on my Instagram account, which is at Widow of Wonder. And I'm gonna have to see how the blog flows. Again, that kind of like expansion, contraction, it was active a couple years ago when I was writing more. But widowofwonder.blogspot.com is like the relic of that little blog that was going on. Yeah, I think that's where things stand for now.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
And Lou, I'd like to just take a moment too to honor you and thank you for being with us sisters, sharing about this, about this sisterly connection and energy about birth and love and relationship. And I really thank you with deep gratitude for holding this loving space of listening with us. I truly appreciate that.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And Jenna, thank you, Ali. Jenna, I want to just echo what Ali has, said, which is, the phrase that comes to my mind is, to whom much is given, much is asked. And, when you're there dealing with birth and death in this very intimate and personal way, that in one way you consciously decided to, and in the other way you know it happened in your life, and you've learned to adapt to it and to integrate it. But as Ali is saying, you know, your path as a healer, and you know, really being a shaman, you know, is continuing to move deeper into that place of authenticity, about, you know, what is possible between these illusions of birth and death, you know, and who are we because of that, and who are we beyond that. And the last thing I want to make sure to say to you, my friend, is as a guy who's been in a few relationships, not every woman would encourage her partner to live his dream in such a beautiful way as you did. And I think on behalf of your man, I'd like to thank you for your faith to allow him to do that, because clearly it meant the world to him to be able to do that. And that's a very rare thing in life, I find. So I just want to appreciate that about you.
It's very touching. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you're very welcome. You really got me. You know, it's a beautiful story. Beautiful story. Bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Give a shout out to my ancestors in Ireland for me, would you please?
Sure. They're in the next room.
Yay!
Get them down at the
Yay.
pub. Yes,
Yeah,
of course. Come drop by anytime. Drop by
I
anytime.
just
Bless
may.
She just might. She's
Good.
on a journey. She's on a
Yes.
journey.
Well, yes. I could also be in Santa Barbara before I know it, so we'll see what happens, you know.
Very nice.
Yes, but it's great connecting with you, and bless you on your journey. And I can't wait to read your blog, and enjoy sharing your story, because it's an amazing story.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jenna. And
yeah.
thank you to all of our listeners. We hope you have found this episode with Jenna Wilson to be inspiring and to leave you with a sense of deep, deep inner peace and love. And just the knowing that we all are one in love. So love and blessings to you all, and we look forward to seeing Jenna back to give us the update on her exciting adventures. So we'll see you again
Can't
soon.
wait.
Hun.
Thank you.
Yes. Bye-bye.